Jonathan and his mommy. In the story, a young boy and his mother travel through together Boston's South End neighborhood, taking steps of all sizes. Literacize brings the book to life and to kid-size scale on the first floor of the Central Library in Copley Square, where children can zigzag, bunny hop, and giant step their way through the interactive exhibit. Literacize is made possible through the generous support of the State Street Corporation and recently opened to the public with a special celebration. Joining me to further explain Literacize is Irene Smalls. She is the author of 15 children's books and 3 interactive storytelling CDs. Her presentations include core components of literacy instruction for students K through 5 using a variety of instructional approaches, reading aloud, word study, shared reading, and movement for older students, as she discusses the publishing business, the writing process, and the job of being a writer and risk-taking. Also joining me today, Mary Ann Fox. Ms. Fox is a parent and the grant manager for the Literacize program. And also we have Julio Salado. He is a fitness expert and trainer who works with adults as well as children and adolescents. Welcome to Urban Update. Thanks for coming in, everyone. Irene, let me start with you. Tell me what exactly is Literacize, this concept of Literacize?
Well, my career as an author has also involved a certain amount of storytelling. And in telling stories to children, I always made them active and involving, and I noticed that there was a terrific impact. The kids were really engaged, they would remember things, and then reading some scientific studies, I also found that exercise helps in the formation of new brain cells. Exercise helps kids in terms of their academic achievement levels overall, and I thought, wait a minute, literacy plus exercise, and that's how Literacize came about.
Okay, and tell me about the exhibit, how this works.
Well, the exhibit is on the first floor of the Copley Library, and everyone's welcome and invited to come. And what we're going to do is we've created the book. It is child-sized, 3-dimensional. It's in full color. There are manipulatives, things for the kids to play with, and in English and Spanish. And to read the story, you've got to move. You've got to do a zigzag step to get to one part of the story. You've got to do a reggae step to get to another part of the story. And so kids have the opportunity to experience the book on a physical level as well as the intellectual level, the mind and the body connected with the book.
Now, Mary Ann Fox, you're a mother, and tell me, I guess, your experience with Literacize, this whole concept of moving and learning.
Yes, well, I have a son who's almost 10, and he's very bright and active and doesn't have any learning disabilities, but it's hard for him to sit and focus in school all day, as it was for me. Now, we were punished when we moved around in school, so I was surprised to find out that his 3rd grade teacher was actually encouraging some mobility to help him focus. And so she was allowing him, say, to stand up when he wrote an essay, or take a little walk around the class, or kind of shake or stretch out. And she found that this helped Aaron actually stay focused longer and get his work done. So it was counterintuitive, but it's working for us, and I think it's part of this concept of kids being active in school. So
this concept of Literacize makes perfect sense to you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Now, Julio, you're a fitness trainer and expert working with kids. Yes. Now, I guess what have you seen in the way of the connection between physical activity and what happens to the brain?
Well, in the industry, when we have like a multi-sensory approach, such as Irene's book, is called proprioception, and it's actually advanced training, where someone has to read, or not necessarily read. We create instability, like in her book, they have them do zigzag steps. What happens with that is that the body is forced to use their weakest muscles, and it helps strengthen their joints and ligaments. The overall effect is just more caloric burning, and it's fun, and it's definitely is mind-body connection.
Now, the idea that I guess you're working with young kids and adolescents, I guess that must be an indication of the childhood obesity problem that
yes.
we realize is growing, at leaps and bounds these days. What are you seeing in young kids?
In young kids, I'm seeing that we're basically losing movement patterns. When we're born, our natural instinct is to move in all 7 directions, well, like left, right, be able to squat. What's happening now because of video games and computers, kids are sitting down more often than not, and literally at the age of 15 or 10, if you have them do a deep squat, they cannot do it. And that's one of the most healthiest things that a human body can do, is do a deep squat, because it actually works the right muscles for the right movement.
Julio, if I could just mention, because you were saying that when a child is playing a video game
Yes.
or using one of the handheld devices, that they're training their body. The muscles are being trained.
Reprogrammed.
There's a muscle imbalance that occurs. Then they go to school and they're sitting for 5 hours, and those muscles are being trained. So if you have 5 to 10 hours a day of training to your body, that is what your body is going to do. And long term, that's unhealthy. That we're looking at long-term healthcare costs going through the roof, and we can reduce our healthcare costs by 30% by getting children active in school and training their bodies properly.
Okay, we're going to take a little break there. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation and talk a little bit about more about, and we're back talking about Literacise, which focuses on reaching the whole child, the mind, and the body. Irene Smalls, talk to me about, I guess, how exercise, from your research, actually affects the brain.
Well, 25% of the blood flow from every heartbeat goes to the brain. So when your heart is beating faster, the brain is getting more oxygen, the brain is getting more fuel. And also in terms of the brain itself, that when you look at something, a neuron fires. When you say something, a neuron fires. When you do something, a neuron fires. So neurons that fire together, wire together. So all of that information that's stimulating those neurons firing, that gets cemented, and that knowledge becomes really embedded in your brain.
And that's the general concept of Literacise.
Yes.
Now, Marianne Fox, you're the I guess the grant manager for the Literacise program. I guess talk to me about what you're trying to achieve in the way of expanding this program.
Right. Well, Irene is trying to get federal funding to look at implementing the Literacise program in schools and making it a practical application that will benefit all children. And what we're looking at in terms of the funding is going into the schools and having children read a book and do the participatory activity versus kids who may just read the book and look at how the learning then affects the retention of the book and how the exercise helps them to retain the ultimate value from the book. Mm-hmm. that makes them have the benefit more than the kids who haven't exercised.
Now, Julio, as a trainer, I guess does this concept make sense to you?
Yes.
That reading and exercising together. Why? How so?
Well, one thing is that most people are visual learners to start with, and by them having something like as engaging as a book, and then they're actually mimicking it, they can have a connection with it, so it's actually fun. It's kind of hard, and like in the Literacise, you actually, it's more.
Shocked at the number of overweight and obese kids you see these days?
I'm not as shocked anymore. Unfortunately, I'm desensitized because it is what it is. There's too much consumption of white flour, too much consumption of sugar, too much Nintendo. And not
physical activity.
That's just a result of what our lifestyle is at this time. But the awesome thing about it is that, like, Literacise taps into the muscle memory bank of our youth, where when we're born we have certain muscle that work for certain movements, and doing those movement patterns bring those muscles alive again and activate them. If we sit down, we turn off certain muscles, hence you get like muscles dominating certain areas, low back pain, knee instability, rounded shoulders, and eventually you probably end up in the hospital because of pain.
Mm-hmm. Now, Irene Smalls, talk to me about how the Literacise program can be put into practice in a